Dave, welcome back. Good to have you here.
Always good to be with you.
I,
Let's solve all the world's problems.
well, you went to Israel and you have a firsthand account of what those individuals over there are experiencing in the wake of what I would say is wavering United States support. What was your takeaway from being there?
Boy, I'm 2 weeks out of being there. I was there for 8 days, and it's still with me. I mean, there's an incredible dichotomy in the country that I guess probably has a lot to do with the history and survival of the Jewish people. On one hand, they're 5 or 6 months out of the worst pogrom or terrorist attacks since the Holocaust. They're burying people. They're still discovering remains of people. You go down to where the Nova Festival, the music festival was. You think it's a cemetery or a graveyard, but it's actually just a memorial at this point, and people are buried elsewhere. There's still 125 or so hostages. It's unclear if they're alive. There hasn't been, proof of life in months at this point since the last hostage release, which was a couple months ago. And yet, at the same time, when you go to Tel Aviv or even to Jerusalem or some of the other cities, they're living again, and they're out at restaurants and they're out at bars, and things are happening. And that is what they've always lived with. They've been through years of suicide bombing. They've been through years of stabbing random people. They've been through bus bombings and car rammings and just virtually anything you can think of in the 75-year existence of the modern state of Israel. And they still keep going. So they will win this. I mean, the one thing, Israel, like America, it's very divided politically. You have lefties, you have righties, you have anarchists, you have conservatives, you have the same plethora that we have here and that exists in Canada and in free societies. You have people of every walk of life, of every political orientation. But the one thing that was very, very clear to me from people across the board was they have to finish this war. This can't be, okay, ceasefire, Hamas exists, we don't know where our people are. Like then, as everyone said, then what is the purpose of the state at that point? The purpose of a state is to protect its citizens. So they have to finish the war. And it's a damn shame that Biden seems to be being dragged by the Jayapals and the AOCs and the Rashida Tlaibs of his party.
We're speaking with Dave Rubin here on the Annie Fry Show. I mean, it's so obvious what this president is doing with this particular situation, because it's what he does with literally everything that he has to weigh in on and make a decision. He puts his finger in the air. He looks where the political winds are shifting, and then he just, I guess, shuffles into that direction with wide platform tennis shoes. And right now it seems as though if it's going to be in Michigan today, Wisconsin votes, there are people on the very left progressive side of the Democrat Party that are departing from a very agreed upon understanding that we do support Israel, that we are each other's greatest allies. And I don't think that he can juggle both of these things at the same time and be successful in November. What do you expect to see from the president as a campaigner in the next few months regarding this issue?
Right. Well, there's a couple things going on here. I mean, first off, nobody knows what Joe Biden of 2024 thinks because his mind is muddled, and it's clear that he is not the intellectual driving force behind these policies. Does anyone honestly think he's sitting in these meetings really leading with a vision for the world and for America or anything else? No, in a weird way, he's become the perfect avatar for what America is right now. It's very confused and sort of feels like it doesn't know what it is. And that's a huge, huge problem. Yes, the radical base of the progressive part of the party seemingly has taken over. I would say if you're an old school liberal, if you're a liberal of, say, 20 years ago, which would have been most Democrats, just kind of a moderate liberal, willing to agree to disagree and all that, I would say at this point, you're pretty much a moderate Republican. And that includes a wide swath of people who would have never considered themselves Republicans, like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and myself, and RFK even is no longer a Democrat, and his last name is Kennedy. So that tells you a lot. The question as to where Biden will go with this as it rolls into the election, it's a little hard to say. I mean, on one hand, they may just be looking at the Jewish vote and going, boy, well, you know what? No matter what, we win New York, and no matter what, we win California, and no matter what, we lose Florida. Those are the three big places for Jews. So it's like, who cares what the Jewish vote is? By the way, you can make another version of that would be like, look what they've done with black people. They know they get the black vote, although I think that might change a bit this year. So you don't have to do anything for them. Now, I think that's short-sighted for many reasons. One would be that there are many more people beyond just Jews who support Israel. But secondly, more importantly, to your point, when people say America needs Israel or Israel needs America, it is a two-way street, I would say, with all of the West. Because think about it this way: it doesn't matter if you like Jews or not. It doesn't particularly matter if you care about Israel or anything else. But if you live in a Western society, so if you live in the UK or France or Denmark or Canada or America, imagine if Israel loses this war, truly loses this war. We have a second Holocaust. Okay, another 8 million Jews, virtually, 70% of the Jews of the world are now killed. Do you think that the Islamists who are marching in the streets in the UK or in Canada, all over Canada, quite depressingly, or in France or Belgium, do you think that they're going to be like, okay, we did it. We got rid of the Jews. Congratulations. We got another Arab country of Palestine, which never existed in the first place. No, they will be emboldened. So the real key is, again, it does not matter. I think there are moral and ethical reasons that you should care about the plight of certain people. But even if you don't, and you think that it has no strategic value and it's a pain in the ass because the Middle East is all screwy and to a certain extent, all of that might be right. All right, just see what happens if Israel goes down. It's really the first line of defense for the rest of the world. It's just true.
It is. And, it just seems to me that there is no principle behind what the Biden administration is doing. It just feels incredibly political, but that follows with the other decisions that this administration and policies that this administration seems to have invested in.
If I could quickly just add to that,
yeah.
I mean, the point here is you're right, because the policy has been, oh, this is our ally. So an ally, you're not just an ally with another country in good times. Oh, yeah, we're allies.
Yeah.
Okay, everything's fine. US and Canada, okay, everything's basically fine. It's good. You're an ally when it matters. And they're a tiny country dealing with insane security things. One of the things that most people don't know, I didn't even realize till I was there, Gaza's in the south of Israel, which is the size of New Jersey. The north has 100,000 people evacuated since October 7th because Hezbollah has taken over Lebanon and they've got several 100,000 rockets faced to the north. So they evacuated 100,000 people. So that the hotel that I was staying at in Tel Aviv, it was mostly people who live in the north who are now living there for months. So they have a certain portion of their country that has been evacuated. They're dealing with the aftermath in the south. Any Friday, we're in Ramadan right now. It's been pretty quiet, but any Friday, we know that could blow up in Jerusalem. So they're dealing with extraordinary things. And it's like, okay, you want to be an ally, Joe Biden? I get it. You don't really know who you are anymore or what you stand for anymore. But if you want to be an ally, you say to your friend, we'll help you get your people back, or at least we'll just not get in the way. Nobody wants American troops or anything. They just want some diplomatic support and some ammo if they need it. And by the way, the ammo or the military support we give them all has to be spent in the United States. So you might have a problem with American foreign aid, and that's fine. I would cut it across the board. But every dollar that we quote unquote give to Israel is actually spent in the US. So we're subsidizing our own industries. There's so many layers to this whole thing, actually.
Yeah, and even looking at what the administration has actually done versus the lip service that they often give, with the UN non-vote, and then asking John Kirby, and John Kirby like, nothing has changed at all. It's like, well, that's not what you're presenting to people in particular areas or particular demographics that might want to hear you. You can say in a campaign speech, or no, we said this, we did that, and they're separate things. They're trying to play both sides of this issue, and this is not an issue you're going to get away with in the end, being on both sides of.
Well, by the way, Annie, that there are at least 4 American hostages still. Isn't that interesting? That nobody talks about Americans that are there. So when I was there, it did cross my mind for a moment when I was right by the Gaza border. If something happened right now and I was kidnapped, would America even care about me? I'm an American. So that's a bizarre notion. But the truth is, this thing could be over in 5 minutes. If Joe Biden would get on the phone with Qatar and say, we know you have the Hamas leadership there. There's about 6 guys. They're all billionaires because they became real rich while Gaza was largely impoverished, although we see that now that they basically built a world-class army. We could call Qatar and say, hey, you have a half hour to release the hostages or we're bombing Qatar. Qatar can't fight us. It could all be over right now if that's what the Americans wanted, or the American administration wanted. I think that's what the Americans want. But sadly, here we are.
Yeah. And when just a small transition into this weekend transgender day of visibility, because we don't have anything that is showing us transgender people and making them visible these days. When the president was asked about that, he said, I didn't do that. And I'm kind of prone to believe that he is admitting to the American people, these things happen. They don't run them by me. This administration is managed. And like you said, the avatar is there to be in the places or say the things that are written down for him. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that and that admission that maybe he doesn't actually know what's going on and he's vocalizing it in front of everyone to
Oh,
see.
I think that's quite clear. I mean, look, when he ends these press conferences and he starts taking questions and he goes, "Oh, I'll get in trouble if I say that," or "I'll get in trouble if I talk to you." It's like, who are you getting in trouble with, Joe? That's the person we need to be talking to right now. So I actually believe him when he says, "I didn't know about this," or something to that effect. I believe they put paper in front of him and he just signs it. You know, the Transgender Day of Visibility, it started in 2009, actually. A lot of people thought it started under Obama. I was actually even confused about that, but it started in 2009 on this March 31st. So it's not that they put it on Easter, other than the fact that they knew that Easter was eventually going to fall on that, because we know where Easter falls on the calendar. So it was intentional. This is what they do with absolutely everything. And even if you think it wasn't intentional, if you look at Biden's Twitter, if you look at Kamala's Twitter, if you look at most of the Department of, Secretary of Education and all that stuff, they all had long scribes about the importance of the Transgender Day of Visibility. Just kind of one-liners on Easter, little throwaway to
Yeah.
the Easter people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I don't know if you heard the clip. Did you hear him say hi to the oyster bunny? It's like my favorite thing that came
I
out of
didn't
this whole
hear
thing.
that, but
It's a classic, and it's gonna go down in history as one of my favorite Bidenisms.
yeah.
The oyster
The
bunny.
oyster bunny. He hangs out with Corn Pop.
Yeah, they're both bad dudes, from what I hear. You are not, Dave Rubin. We're grateful for your time here on our show, and thank you for sharing some of your experience of being over in Israel to give us that upfront perspective. Thank you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you. You as well.